In the past 5 videos, we saw how drop-down lists can be implemented in a template-driven form. To have a clear understanding on whatever that is going to be explained in this video, I would recommend to watch the previous 5 videos. In the previous video, I demonstrated getting form data from two sources. One source is the user object and the other source is value property in ngForm object. In the user object, we were able to get the form data for name and email, but we were not able to get the selected status object for the drop-down list. I will help to recollect the reason why we were not able to get the selected status from the drop-down. In the select tag, we removed the two-way data binding to show the first option tag based on which we were able to implement the validation. This is the reason why we removed the two-way data binding on the select element. After removing two-way data binding, we were not able to get the selected status in user object, but we were able to get all the form data through ngForm value object. Now that we have removed two-way data binding from select element, is it possible to remove two-way data binding from name and email fields? What will happen if two-way data binding is removed from name and email fields? Let us try that out. I am now going to make necessary changes and see how it works. I am removing two-way data binding from name input text element and then from email text element. I am saving the file. After the page reload, I am checking if validation is working or not by directly clicking on the submit button. The validation messages are displayed, so validation is working correctly. I am entering data into the form fields for name, email, and status. None of the form field changes are reflected in the user object as we have removed two-way data binding, but we can see all the form data values are reflected in ngForm value object. Even after removing two-way data binding in all the fields, validation works and we are able to read form data from ngForm value object. It demonstrates that a form can be implemented in Angular without two-way data binding. After these changes, if we look at the current code in HTML template, we can notice that we are not using user object anywhere. It is used to display user object content after the submit button. If this line as well is commented, then user object is not at all used in the HTML template. Now the question is user object really required? In app.component.ts, as user object is no more used, I am commenting the line in which the user property is defined. I am saving both the files. After the page reload, I am testing if validation works. Then I am entering some data in the form fields. We can see that the ngForm value object is getting reflected correctly. User property is now removed in component class. Even then, validations are working and we are able to get the form data from value property of ngForm. As we are able to implement the functionality without user object, is user object really required? Do we have to define user class to create user objects? With this context in mind, let us look into another example. I am going to show some code snippet from the documentation of Angular.io. This documentation is what I referred to implement validation on select element. Have a look at this part of code snippet. It defines an array of a set of states in United States of America. Look at the states property defined here. It is not defined with any data type. It is directly defined with array of objects. In this example, this array is used to display a drop-down list. Let us go back to Visual Studio Code and check how we have defined the data for status drop-down. we have defined a status class, then we defined an array based on status class, which is what we used for displaying the drop-down list. I'm going to define the statuses array object without using the status class. I am commenting the existing code that creates the statuses array with status objects. I am uncommenting the below code snippet that I have already typed. Here the statuses array is defined without using status class and is directly created as JavaScript objects. I am saving the file. Let us look into the status drop-down list and check if it is correctly populated. We can see that it is correctly populated. If I select an item from the drop-down list, we can see the respective status object in the ngForm value property. The sign-up form is now implemented successfully without using any class definition. We are not using user class and we are not using status class. Earlier I demonstrated sign-up form can be implemented without using user class. Based on the demonstrations provided so far in this video, we can clearly conclude that any implementation can be done without defining a class. Now the primary question is whether to implement data definition using a class or without using a class. Coding without class definition is easier to implement as it contains less coding and it surely solves the purpose. The coding with class requires additional coding and it gives a feel that it is error prone and difficult to implement. This is the general perspective everyone gets in the early stage of becoming a developer, and the objective of this video is to change this perspective. Now let me highlight the issue associated with this approach. In status.ts, let us assume that when typing the third status object, I made a mistake when typing the name. Instead of name, I have typed it as names. With this mistake, I am saving the file. It results in compilation error. The reason is that in app.component.ts, we have defined the statuses property using status class. So I am removing the status class reference here as well, and I am not going to define any data type. I am saving the file. After the page reload, I am clicking on the status dropdown. We can see the first two entries, but the third entry is blank. The compiler did not show any error even though the property is misspelled. JavaScript syntax allows creation of objects based on any property name provided. It cannot verify if it is provided correctly or not by comparing it with other objects. Assume the scenario where a mathematical calculation is made based on a JavaScript object property value. There is a possibility of human error with the wrong property name that might result in a wrong calculation. This will result in new issues cropping up in the application, and there will be frequent needs to fix those issues. This activity of fixing issues is called as code maintenance or application maintenance. These issues gradually increase the burden on development team to spend a lot of their time on fixing issues, and over a period of time it might even result in difficulty to add new features to the application, as building each new feature results in numerous new defects in the already working features. This graph is a sample representation of how defects may gradually increase in the application over a period of time. With this context, let us understand what a scalable application is. If an application is said to be scalable, it means the possibility to include complex features into the application with the certainty that it is not going to result in new defects in the existing features that are working correctly. If Angular applications are developed with the right design, then it is possible to make our Angular application as a scalable application. Defining data using class or interface gives the possibility to catch issues during compilation itself and gives the possibility to scale the application. I will demonstrate a scenario where defining class is useful. Let me revert back all the code changes done in this video. Let me go to status.ts. Using undo shortcut key multiple times, I am reverting back the changes done. Then reverting back changes in app.component.ts, and finally reverting back the changes in app.component.html. I am saving all the files. In app.component.html, in the name input text element for two-way data binding, let us assume that I have wrongly typed user.names instead of user.name. I am saving the file. We can see that it immediately results in a compilation error pointing out the wrong property name that we have defined here. Based on these demonstrations, I would recommend to always define data using class or interface. Hope this video helps you understand the importance of defining data using a class or interface. I am changing names back to name and saving the file. Based on the explanations and design considerations recommended, it would be now clear that we are going to use user class. But when using user class and its object, we are not able to get the selected status object in the user object, which we will fix in the next video.